Hello, if you are joining us, we are live, switching over live. I want to send our apologies for actually the technical difficulties that we had on sabif.tv. Um, I hope that you will be able to continue to catch this film. Hello, if you are joining us, we are live, switching over live. I want to for actually the technical difficulties that we had on sabif.tv. I hope that you will be able to continue to catch this film. Hello, if you are joining us, we are live, switching over live. I want to for actually the technical difficulties that we had on sabif.tv. I hope that you will be able to continue to catch this film. Hello, if you are. Oh my goodness, we are having serious technical difficulties. Okay. I'm going to continue talking. Hopefully, we can get this going. That is the horror of live streaming. But the first Rainbow Coalition did air on PBS, on ITBS, and so we hope that we can continue to pick it up and watch it there. We are going to need to get this fixed before we can continue because we have a wonderful panel lined up, and we do want to do them justice to hear everything. So if you could bear with us and tune back in about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Ada Bobineau. I'm the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And I want to first apologize to our viewers on sabif.tv and to the filmmaker, Ray, for the technical difficulties. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Ada Bobineau. I'm the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And I want to first apologize to our viewers on sabif.tv and to the filmmaker, Ray, for the technical difficulties. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Ada Bobineau. I'm the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And I want to first apologize to our viewers on sabif.tv and to the filmmaker, Ray, for the technical. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Ada Bobineau. I'm the founder and director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And I want to first apologize to our viewers on sabif.tv and to the filmmaker, Ray, for the technical. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'd like to first introduce myself. Okay. I think that we can move forward. Any feedback? Okay, I want to go ahead and again apologize for the technical difficulty. Prayerfully, we can get through this wonderful panel that we have of activists as well as the filmmaker. Great discussion in store. I'm going to go ahead and toss the program over to Diane Green, who curated the film program and also is going to be hosting. So without further ado, we thank you all for staying with us and getting through this technical difficulties, but we are going to get it straight and keep it moving. Okay, Diane, I'd like to bring you in and I'm going to make a quick exit. I will talk to you all at the end and we'll talk about upcoming programs and other things we have coming up for this year. All right, thank you, Diane.
Good afternoon. This is Diane Green, and I am the curator for San Antonio International Black Film Festival. And I would like to begin this afternoon's proceedings by introducing Ray Sanesteban, who is a filmmaker, a film director, a scholar, a teacher, and a film curator. He centers his work in political activities and social justice movements, addressing the themes of justice, memory, and political transformation. I'd also like to introduce Karen Spellman, who was present at the inception of the Black Power movement, but has a history that dates back to when she was 13 years old and joined the youth group of the Greensboro, North Carolina, NAACP. She graduated from Howard in 1964, where she received her BA, and she began to become active in NAG, the Nonviolent Action Group, the campus affiliate of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. After graduation, she worked in DC Poverty Program, the United Planning Organization during the day, and in the evening volunteered for SNCC and was arrested for sitting in at the Justice Department with a group of SNCC volunteers.
That's
Lynn,
enough.
that's enough. What she does now is produce fantastic cultural events. Lynn French was a member of the Black Panther Party from 1968 through 1973. She worked in Chicago, Berkeley, and Oakland, California. In the party, she worked in the newspaper circulation, labor, finance, and the breakfast program, food and clothing giveaways, and was instrumental in starting a child care center in Berkeley and Chicago. Today, French serves as the executive director of Hope and a Home, a transitional housing program for low-income homeless families, supporting efforts to develop affordable housing and equitable alternatives to gentrification. Penny King, for the last 8 to 9 months, she's been working tirelessly to help build the organization that is
Yanawana Somi Sex Book Collective.
And you do what do you guys do?
We provide we try our best to provide mutual aid. We help with feeding the houses folks in the community, and try and uplift their voices as much as possible, along with sending in books to incarcerated folks and trying our best to provide any support that their family or that they need in terms of just general human connection and commissary and so on and so forth. We also just go over radical and revolutionary texts as well and read that and have discussions based on that.
Okay, and Farrell Clark is a member of San Antonio's Responsible Revolutionaries and our chapter of Black Lives Matter.
Reliable Revolutionaries.
What did I say? Responsible? I'm sorry, Reliable Revolutionaries. Okay. You want to pick that up from me and carry it forward?
I just a part of Reliable Revolutionaries. We're a civil rights organization, and what we do is we ignite the youth and get them engaged civically and turning protests to policy.
Okay, thank you so much, and will be hearing from you a little bit later, more fully in the afternoon's proceedings. Ray, what part of your personal journey brought you to produce a film on the first Rainbow Coalition movement?
Well, when I was in college, I went to NYU, and I had um, saw some footage, which was basically American Revolution 2, which is a film we used clips from in the film that I made. And specifically, there's that meeting with Bob Lee and the Young Patriots. And at the time, I was wondering, like, who are these people? What is happening? And what was the backstory to this meeting? And so this was in the back of my mind for many years. And in the meantime, I worked on other films about the Chicano movement, about the American Indian movement, about the Young Lords. And I also worked on a film about one of the Black Panthers that was part of the New York 21 trial. And every time I interacted with movements, I saw that they were interacting with each other. But that story had not come out. And so I thought it was very important, especially over time, that as our communities are trying to organize, I think we have forgotten sometimes that we used to really work together a lot in the 60s. And I thought that was an important message. And the Rainbow Coalition in particular, I think, was a catalyst for these kind of ideas. And especially the fact that it combined three movements, the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, and the Young Patriots. When I really started learning about that coalition, I thought this is an important story that needs to be told. And then I started working on it. And that effort took about 12 years to bring the film that you just saw to public television. It was a 12-year journey. And it was kind of a story that most funders didn't really understand. It took a lot of time for them to really understand what I was trying to do. And the events of the country kind of pushed that effort forward, because that's when we started seeing the tearing down of the Confederate monuments and all that. And then at that point, they started saying, oh, wow, this is really an important story. And so here we are today. The film's done. And I wanted to thank you for doing this, having this presentation. The whole film was designed for this, to be able to have our communities come together and remember our efforts in the past to work together, and also to open up that dialogue about how can we work together today, potentially.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I had a question to ask you regarding the manner in which you what process did you use to track down the individuals that were in the film? You want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it was actually kind of difficult, as you know, because of the COINTELPRO, the attacks on these movements. A lot of the activists were and still are kind of wary about outsiders. Luckily, I was able to access the Young Lords first, since I'm Chicano, and we had contacts between the Chicano movement and the Young Lords. And so I was able to have introductions that allowed me to make contact with Chacha Jimenez, the founder of the Young Lords. And Chacha actually opened up a lot of doors. I mean, he introduced me to members of the Black Panthers in Chicago, for example. It took a while to get access to the Young Patriots members, and in part because they really had, some of them had just disappeared. I mean, you couldn't, they weren't out talking about their activism back in the day. And so the process of making the film actually helped some of those members to become more vocal about their past. And that helped the film as well. Once they started talking more about their experiences, then it became easier to tell the story, because there was so little information about that movement, in part because of that repression. I mean, people just scattered in some ways. And so it took a while to find them. And they hadn't even been in contact with each other for 20 years, 30 years. And so really it was kind of like a social archaeology, trying to find these folks and to get them to speak. A lot of people turned down being interviewed. They didn't want to talk about it. And again, I was able to gain, slowly build up trust with some folks. And that's the end result, is we were able to get the film done.
Involved with the Black Panthers and then later moved into the Rainbow Coalition. Hi, Lynn. Okay.
I think we didn't hear the beginning of
Oh,
Lynn's introduction.
no, Lynn's muted. She needs to unmute
Oh,
herself.
okay.
Okay. I'm gonna shift out till we fix this. Lynn, do you hear me?
Now, yeah, I could hear
Oh,
you.
good.
I didn't hear the beginning of your comment. I heard
Okay,
you.
my comment was essentially asking you how you got involved with the Black Panthers and then how that moved into your work with the Rainbow Coalition.
Okay, so I joined the Black Panther Party in 1968 in Chicago. And at that point, many of us were involved in the Black Power movement. That was the period right after Stokely Carmichael initially articulated the concept of Black Power. And many of us were in a lot of different community groups in Chicago. And then what burst out there, among in the readings that we were doing, there was this magazine, Ramparts magazine, in which Eldridge Cleaver famously wrote an article about Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party. And at the same time, the New York Times covered the Black Panther Party going to the State House in Sacramento. So many of us just sat up and took notice. And around that time, Bobby Rush and Bob Brown were transitioning from SNCC to the Black Panther Party and were organizing a chapter in Chicago. And so I met them at the end of '68 and was recruited to join. The interesting to me transition that the Black Panther Party made was that we started out as a Black Power organization, but we quickly realized that the issues facing us were also facing many other communities. And so we transitioned from being just a Black Power organization to the Rainbow Coalition and coalition builders, realizing that all of us had the same challenges, especially, both nationally and locally, but especially in Chicago with Richard Daley, who was very oppressive and repressive in our communities.
You and Karen to kind of speak to this question. I want you to kind of situate the work that you did in the 60s and to give us a sense of the place and the time so that the younger people, the younger generation can have a feeling for the techniques, the atmosphere, and all those things that were going on when you all were involved in the struggle.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank the San Antonio International Black Film Festival under the leadership of Sister Ada Bobineau and Sister Diane Green, who were both good friends of mine for quite some time, for producing this series. It's very important that while those of us, for example, in Washington, D.C., are now in a state of siege. I live in Washington. We're all hunkered down in our homes. We have martial law, curfews, everything that actually existed back in the 60s when a lot of Southern communities were under siege by racism and had to be protected by the military. And that's exactly what's going on today. So when you look back at it, it doesn't seem like very much has changed over the course of the past 60 years. Racism is still alive and well. This time, the policemen turned their attention on the predominantly white congressional delegation and scared the devil out of them. And it sort of reminded me of the mobs that I used to see in Birmingham and in Atlanta and in Mississippi and probably in Chicago. I remember seeing the footage of Dr. King trying to integrate communities in Cicero. And it kind of makes me think, as an old person saying, nothing has changed very much in these past years. We've coalesced, we've gone it alone, we've tried just about everything, but it seems like this American system still supports the right, the extreme right, the people who have been leading this fear campaign against right now against the Biden administration, but ultimately it's against us. So I don't see much difference between the alt-right, the Chicago Police Department that assassinated Brother Fred and Mark back in '72, or the police who have assassinated Sammy Young, who was in SNCC in Birmingham, Alabama, or in other parts of the country. It seems to be that racism is alive and well in America. And we have to do our best to figure out what we can do to combat that racism, but understanding all along that it's not an effort that can be done overnight. It takes long, protracted organizing and a long, protracted struggle. As Diane gave that too long biography about me, I was raised in Greensboro, North Carolina during the time when the sit-ins were taking place. And also I matriculated to Howard, where SNCC folks were just would come back and forth and hit a lick at the university and then go down south and organize again. So I was able to take part in a lot of community organizing, which was the hallmark of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And that is, I think we served in a way as a role model and catalyst, big brother for those movements to come. And I moved eventually to Atlanta and worked in the national office and was there when Stokely Carmichael called for the first Black Power movement that took place at the James Meredith March in 1966. And it's important for us to keep, as we tell our stories, to put the timeline on it so people can understand the relationships between what happened in '66 when Stokely first called for Black Power. Then the folks in Oakland, California, namely Huey Newton and Eldridge and Bobby Seale, sent delegations down to Atlanta to study with SNCC, to learn how we how we went about organizing. The particular focus of our organizing efforts in '66 was the Lowndes County Freedom Organization that renamed the Black Panther Party as a part of as a mascot for the all-Black Lowndes County, Alabama organization that was barred from the Black people were 80% of the population in Lowndes County, but they couldn't join the Democratic Party. So SNCC came and helped them form their own independent party. And the mascot for that Lowndes County Freedom Organization was a Black Panther. And Huey Newton wrote a note to the SNCC organization and asked whether or not he could borrow the name of the Black Panther and use it for an organization that he was developing in Oakland. And of course, we gave him permission to do that. And so our friendship became official back in '66, and several of the chair of SNCC, including Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown, were given honorary titles within the Black Panther movement. Black Power, as I guess it was a calling card. It was also something that was an inward work. It was something that Black people had to do in order to develop themselves as a people. It called for an increased love for ourselves, for our beauty, for our own self-determination, and for recognizing that we were part of a larger African diaspora and that we had brothers and sisters in the continent, that we should support the struggles that they had against colonialism and repression. So these things were all going on in 1966, '68. And one of the most popular cities that kept inviting SNCC people to come and speak was Chicago. And it was there that I think Stokely Carmichael, who later became known as Kwame Ture, spent a lot of time there organizing with his brothers Cleve Sellers, spent time there with Fred Hampton, and of course Bob Brown, who was a younger person, was part of Stokely's organization as well. So we had a lot of ties between Atlanta and Chicago. We had a Chicago SNCC organization, and a lot of our folks matriculated back and forth to the Chicago area.
Excuse me, I need to ask this question because it's come up to me. I'm really interested in finding out what, and this question is for everyone, what in your background moved you to do social justice work? And this time I want to kind of start with the younger generation. I'm going to ask Penny and then move to Pharaoh, and then the elders can come in afterwards.
Hi. So yeah, to kind of go off of, thank you for sharing like everything that you just shared. That was nice. But yeah, to kind of answer the question, for me specifically, I found that a lot of the things, when you look back at it, that are foundational basis of the way that society is run at this point in time, the way that, you know, the systems and institutions and everything is run at this point in time, it never was set up to benefit Indigenous, people of color, you know, femme-bodied, or, you know, disabled, you know, people in general. And I think like at a young age, I had a very early realization. My parents also very much aided in that kind of like freedom to move around and form, you know, my own opinions of the world. And I just didn't like what I saw. And then, you know, we fast forward, you know, doing the protests, going out, doing the, you know, sittings in front of traffic, because I'm originally from Chicago as well. And that was like my high school experience. And then moving out here and, you know, trying to get a footing and like, you know, trying to get a footing as a younger Black woman, pretty much, like, and moving into adulthood and trying to figure out kind of what my voice was and how I wanted to uplift that, and how I wanted to see the world in order to bring other people into it as I got older, right? And you know, the George Floyd situation definitely ignited a strong presence in San Antonio, and so many people were out, and just worldwide and global. I mean, not that these problems didn't exist before, which is a good thing to like, you know, look back on. But yeah, not a lot has changed when you look at it, and I want to see change. I want to be able to bring, you know, a family into the world that doesn't have to learn how to survive and find ways to survive, as opposed to actually being able to live their life as precious as the human life is. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Yeah, Pharaoh?
Thank you for that. Now, for me, I would say I would echo some of those same sentiments. What I would say is I've always been curious and interested in the civil rights movement and studying some of the greats that, you know, have come before us that have got us to where we are at this point. But when we started seeing a lot of the killings that were happening in our Black community, that got me involved in trying to figure out what can you do personally to be involved, not just, you know, from a studying standpoint, but actually getting involved. So in 2017, I was led down to City Hall. We had an issue where those monuments were becoming a problem in our community. And there was one particular at Travis Park that the community wanted removed. So after successfully advocating there and getting that statue removed, that led me to have a feeling that we can make a difference, and that what we have to do is stop sitting on the sidelines and get involved. And so when we fast forward to George Floyd and what happened there with that killing, and we saw mass protests erupt around the globe, and people were starting to say enough is enough. And I really started looking at the connection between the civil rights movement of the past and how even today in 2021, we are still fighting for the exact same things that were being fought for then. And I think at that moment, a bubble was busted, and I stopped looking at things with, well, you know, we've progressed so far and look at how far we've come. And I started saying, no, you know, although there have been some some progressions there, and we're thankful for that. We still have a very far way to go, and it's up to this new generation to pick up the torch and start carrying it across the finish line. And so that's how I got involved. That's how I started it. It ignited a passion in me, and it gave me a calling that said, now is the time to pick up the fight.
Okay, so each one of you has spoken just a little bit about the role of state-sponsored violence against either your organizations or you personally. So can Lynn and Karen address that, and then throw it over to Penny and Pharaoh? And Ray, you can comment also, please.
As I mentioned previously, Black Panther Party sort of evolved at the beginning of the power movement. And at that point, the Southern campaign to end legalized segregation had been fairly successful, but didn't really address what was going on in the urban areas. And our biggest area in Chicago was that it was like an occupied territory, the way that Mayor Daley police patrolled the city. And so violence was our major thing, state-sponsored violence. And that, I guess famously everyone knows that they assassinated Fred Hampton in his sleep in 1969, but they just were unwilling to back down about that. And that was our big issue. When people started looking again, I guess things got a little quiet, but then when people started looking again a couple summers ago at Black Lives Matter, we felt like this is the future speaking back to us. We saw young people forming Black Lives Matter organizations, and we're like, this is who we were, and this is who we want them to be, and welcome the message that they bring forward. Because it hasn't ended. And right now I'm in Washington, D.C. We are an occupied city. There are more troops here in Washington than they are in the different countries that the United States has soldiers in, just because of this violence of right-wingers and racists invading the Capitol. And in that time, the person who was the founding member of our chapter in Chicago, Bobby Rush, is now a congressman representing the same district in Illinois where our office was. And the first thing I did when I heard that was text him like, "Are you okay?" And they had been whisked out of the chambers and gone various undisclosed locations. And it was just incredible, because we all know that had that been Black folks doing something like that, people wouldn't have lived to get inside the Capitol, much less tear things apart. So it's, as they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I'm happy to hear young people attacking that. Maybe you can do a better job than we did, because it's still a pervasive problem. And for all the progress that we felt that we were making, the bottom line is things haven't changed.
Well, the struggle continues, and it is protracted. I want to talk a little bit about the techniques and how they differ. The techniques you use to reach people, and how they differ between what happened in the 60s and what is happening now. They didn't have internet in the 60s. They had to knock on people's doors and put out flyers by hand. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, in Chicago, we emulated the SNCC model of having 10 people contact 10 people who contact 10 people. And the huge difference now is the internet and the fact that you can actually capture police brutality and people can't dispute it. But they don't seem to want to stop doing it, even though they're being filmed doing it.
If I may actually speak on that, because this is something I believe Book Collective is definitely heavy in trying to create values and models after pulling different pieces that have worked in the past and creating something new from it. So it's like, yes, we can move forward and do and repeat some of these actions and, try and systematically go through it. But as we see, the system is broken. And, and it's time to build something new that is based around the community that wants to help. And so I feel like social media definitely does play a part, but it is both a blessing and a curse. You can get mass amounts of people out and you can get mass amounts of, people to congregate, but also are you going about it in a way that is also like teaching people how to sustain themselves autonomously, which is ultimately the goal, I believe. When the system is broken, what do you do to find something new, right? You have to try something new, which means you have to put into the effort into building something new, which I think is where once it reaches social media, sometimes we get a bit of a falter because it's just something that you can scroll and that you can like and you can comment on or show up, take a picture and say that you showed up. Like then it becomes something that's just like, okay, now it's a trend, now it's showy. And one of the things that I found even down in San Antonio is like, yes, we had this big progression of like people coming out when George Floyd died, right? And it erected this global, reaction. And, everyone's on social media, everyone's talking about it, everyone's talking about it. You get on social media now, it almost looks the same. I go on my Twitter feed, I have to seek it out. I go outside, I don't see anybody planning how to do take up space 6 feet, apart, so on and so forth. And when it does, it falls on the same, few community members because people get so attached to this and don't realize that it's not only outside of this. We've normalized things, I feel, to the point where it's also dehumanized people, where we no longer see, a person dying. We no longer see it as that. It's just, oh, this is the next name that we'll shout. And it's like, yes, we need to uplift their names. Yes, we need to say their names, but remember what their names meant. Remember the reason they were out there. Remember what they were working towards. That's what you should remember. That's what should always be the goal. And that's how you honor the name. That's how you justify these names, is you never stop working towards that. And that means you have to try stuff new. You have to try new things. You have to realize that, yes, it sucks that all of these things that have been built upon and built upon and built upon and built upon over all of these years. Yes, all of these things, like they suck. They are the worst. But like, what are we going to do? Are you gonna go out and actively see how you can help your community? Are you gonna do what the police formed to do in the first place, which is a good example would be like, yes, it is like, okay, you can gather people on social media, but you've lost that human connection of like, okay, well, what do you need? Like, this is me checking in with my community member and trying to figure out how I can provide something for you instead of just assuming based off of what I saw on social media. That's my spiel about that.
No, to add to that, I think that's very important. But another thing that I think we have to begin to really and truly educate our community, and especially when it becomes with our youth, we have to be able to connect the dots between the past and the present. And and that's why I really give thanks to Mr. Ray here, the filmmaker, as well as Ms. Spellman and Ms. French, because it's very important for us to understand that this all ties in together. These are not separate situations. It's all one. And when we look at that, then we can start understanding that we do have to look at these things differently. What I feel we failed at as a community is every time we feel we get some progression, we begin to back down. We begin to say, okay, well, we've made it this far and now we can, let up. And what we should have done is we should have never let the progress that was made in the 60s and 70s stop. It was on that generation to pick that torch up and continue to run it across. And then it's like a baton. You continue to pass it to that next generation. What I would like to see is that now that we have this, this culmination and everything that's happened in our community has culminated in this awakening, this mass awakening. But what we have to do as community activists and our various different rights, we have to go out and we have to get our youth back engaged and get them to understand, look, we have to rebuild these programs. We have to rebuild our youth. We have to rebuild our communities. We have to rebuild each other. We cannot wait for someone else to do it for us. We must start doing it now. And then once we get those things rolling, we cannot let up. We must continue rolling after that. We have to make sure that we get involved in every level of this fight, which does include getting involved in the politics, which is where it's important, turning protest to policy, getting them to understand your voice matters, your vote matters. Get engaged and start figuring out what we have to do to change these laws and to get these elected officials that have been sitting idly by while we continue to beg for justice and they continue to deny it. We have to get them out of office and put people in place that look like us, talk like us, think like us, and that are going to care about the things that we care about.
Back in the day, freedom is a constant struggle. We have a song that says, we've been struggling so long that we must be free. But the fact of the matter is that we're not. And I think that the freedom struggle, the Black Power movement, the Black Panther movement, the Rainbow Coalition, all are a part of a continuity of struggle. But the important thing to remember that it always begins with the people. And I believe that there's a little bit of a disconnect now. Maybe social media has become a tool that we can use so easily that it has replaced the ongoing door knocking, sitting and talking to 2 to 3 people in a community, meeting at a local location, trying to define what people in our community really are concerned most about, certainly police brutality being one, criminal justice reform another, and trying to take action on it on a smaller scale. We don't have to be in the press all the time. Sometimes we need to go quiet. And that's what happened in the movement. Our organizers, our SNCC organizers, we call them field secretaries, actually moved into the cities and communities and local areas and in the rural areas. We lived among the people. We didn't, chase ourselves, go back home to our pretty communities in the evening. We stayed in the community 24 hours a day. We became a part of the community. And we listened, we organized, we gave advice, but basically our main objective was to build local leadership. That you have to understand that there are local leaders that already exist in a lot of communities, and they don't even know they're leaders, but they're people that others rely on for a number of things that folks need in communities that are struggling. And you've got to find those folks, tease them out, empower them, empower the community. Civil. Lately, the big thing is for civic engagement. Yes, we learned back. One of the things we learned back in the day was that direct action is what we call going in the streets and mass mobilizing, as you call it. Direct action only started a movement. It didn't keep it going. What you had to do after you had your direct action and your mobilization, you have to go on into those communities and do that very, very hard work of organizing. And unless that takes place, and it's a lifelong struggle, I have to tell you, Lynn and I have been around for a long time now. She's less longer than me, but you always find the place that you can make a difference in. where you can contribute and you can see things growing that need to happen for your people. An undying love for our people is what the Black Power movement tried to instill in all Black people. And I think it has to be carried over into all of the work that's being done now.
Oh my God, I definitely agree with that so much. Yeah, book club. So Yana Wana Summer Book Club. I should have also said this like kind of in the beginning. The name comes from the indigenous land that San Antonio is on. This is, land that was taken from people that are still here. Like, let's not forget this. They have not left. They have only been pushed into small portions of their land, as we've seen time and time again, right? So it's based off of representing like the roots on the land and the territory that we are fighting on. And going from there in terms of educating as well, like that is, we look at people on our repertoire so far. We've read we've started with the Combahee River Collective Statement, which was basically something that we used to get our missions and our values, that basically helped coin the term that like the last will come first, along with people like Franz Fanon and stuff like that, which we're reading right now, which is beautiful. Talks very heavy about going out into the community, talks very heavy about making sure that you're representing the, quote unquote peasant class, because, he is not in America, but experiencing, the reach that Western civilization has in other countries in terms of like their systematic oppression and so on and so forth, right? And so we look at these items and we look at how all of these revolutionaries that you see in text and that and coin and read about and quote unquote and are supposed to be learning in school, but that's a whole nother conversation. Right, all of these people that have coined the like revolutionary and started these groups and did this stuff and like fought for their freedom for their whole lives, and then also looking at you all and seeing the work that you all have done and continue to like look and see and be dissatisfied with how things are running. And so we like to look at that and grab from that. And we've read Layla Khalid, who is also a Palestinian that was exiled from her homeland and fought for whole freedom, and talked about like globalization and westernization and stuff like that, and just the overarching reach that we have as a country, in oppressing folks everywhere, and just how it reaches in home so much, and that we do need to start local, because that is the step, and start local in letting people know and raising the awareness. That's another thing that Fanon, I love reading Fanon, by the way. I'm gonna be like referencing him a lot, but that's another thing Fanon definitely airs out, is like, yes, you can go through all of these, steps that have already been in place. And this, again, I will say the system is broken, and no need to, no marks to anyone going down that route. But it really does come from the mobilization of the people who don't even have access, who probably don't even know about anything about the local elections. And you can tell them about it, and you can, but is that going to benefit them in the long run? Like when the person on the street, and I know, when you talk about direct action, that is not only, going out and mobilizing, but that is like mutual aid, direct action and mutual aid. And like that person is still going to be sitting and like starving on the street tomorrow. So like there needs to be also groups that are, going and doing that, and also raising their awareness as to like how to autonomously live outside of these oppressive forces and institutions that cast them aside in the first place, right? And so that's what we focus on. Yeah. In response, I got excited. That's
I can kind of agree with you there, but I feel that it has to be like a two-pronged approach, because although the system, and I hate to say it's broken, because I don't believe it's broken. I believe it's operating exactly as it was designed to operate.
That's true.
I don't believe it's broken at all. The issue is we need to go and we have to rebuild this model that we've been stuck in for so long. Now, I do believe that we need to learn how to live autonomously. I do believe we have to learn how to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. However, I also believe that we live in a system where if we do not learn the game, if we don't learn the game that was being played against us, we will not win. We're in America, and and when it comes to America, politics is what is the game changer for us. So it is important to get them to be educated and to get out, not educated in the school sense, educated in why that vote matters. Because as long as our people continue to believe that our vote doesn't matter, our voice doesn't matter, then we will continue to see this same game be played against us. Because that's the game that's being used, is as long as we stay silent because we believe we don't matter, so we fall off and decide not to speak up, not to get involved, not to get engaged, not to vote, then that's why we're not getting anything done, because that's where the true power in this country lies, is in the laws that allow them to perpetuate this type of stuff against people that are Black, of color, and of indigenous descent.
I want to pick up on something that Penny said and that Lynn hasn't actually had a chance to talk about in detail, and that other people have mentioned, and that's addressing people's basic human needs. And I'd like her to talk about how the Black Panthers did that. And I'd also like, as you talk about that, to talk about the need for training. Like, I've done some research, and I know that James Lawson did workshops for people to get ready to do the lunch counter sit-ins. So what I don't see happening currently is that I don't see there being a lot of training of young civil rights, young social justice warriors. And could you kind of connect those two things for me, Lynn? The provision of basic human things and training on how to do that.
Sure. I can't say that I'm involved in any national effort to do those things. I can talk about what I personally am doing. I've for the past decade or so, I have had a small program called Hope in a Home, and we work with low-income homeless families because people are locked out of affordable housing and basic needs in this expensive city. We own property, we put people in it, we work with them and help them with job training. And since the pandemic, we've been especially challenged because first place, the schools closed down. So we have an education staff. We bought computers and hotspots for all the children in our program. And the education staff is working with them on a daily basis to keep them connected to the schoolwork and to make sure that they're staying in their educational mode. And then this summer, we started a free food program. We talk about going back to your roots, because people just didn't have enough food. Their children are home all day. They can't sustain the whole family off of food stamps. The people in Washington, so many people have been locked out of their employment, or else they're working a job where they aren't paid much and they're going out with a lot of risk, and their children are home alone. So twice a month, what we've done is made relationships with food wholesalers who were finding themselves not losing business because so many restaurants had closed. So essentially, I've been raising money to buy food from the food wholesalers, and twice a month we deliver fresh produce, fresh dairy, cereal, bread, all the basics, so that each family has what they need to keep the children healthy, to keep themselves healthy. And we're sort of going in concentric circles. So I'm just stepping out in faith because more and more people are coming to us for help. But I don't know what else to do. You can't turn to, you certainly can't turn to the government. We're just trying to do some things on our own to address the basic needs of the people and to keep people, especially the young people, going so that they can have a different future.
Well, we're kind of come to the end of this segment. Unfortunately, I don't want the stream to cut out on us. I don't want to get in trouble with Ada for not thanking a bunch of people. So first of all, I want to thank our panelists, Karen Spellman, Ray Esteban, Lynn French, Farrell Clark, and Penny Coon. And I want to also thank Black, who is our collaborator. and our co-sponsor. I want to thank our team, our tech team, Ada Babineau, Wayne Hill, Bridget Scarborough, and Mia Morris. I want to also thank Ray. Thank you guys. Super Stream, Maxie, and Shatar Collier, and all of our guest panelists, and you, the audience, for tuning in. It's been a joy. Thank you so much. And I really have enjoyed curating this. And sometime by the middle of next
So
week on the wait just a second on the State Live TV, we'll host the Panther 10-point program and a short bibliography.
Great.
thank
And Penny,
you
I'm
all.
glad to hear that you're reading Frantz Fanon. Keep reading.
Yes,
Reading.
yes.
That's right.
Oh, do you all, just before we go, are you all working on any projects? Do you have anything in the mix that you'd like to share with our audience before we go, and social activism activities you're doing? If you could just give us that in like, quick 30-second bites and with everybody, and then I'll wrap it up. Penny, go ahead. I got you next. Penny.
Okay, so I'm just gonna plug our Instagram. You can find us at YAS Book Collective. There you can also find our Cash App. That's where we raise, basically we crowdfund so that we can feed people in our houseless community. We feed the Hayes community every Sunday and cook every Saturday and go out and do that. So to keep that up and running, we need a couple $100. We also have Prison Aid, which helps send books into incarcerated folks. Like Frantz Fanon, even though some of them did get sent back, so that we can uplift their voices and also care for their families and also just, have human connection with them and figure out what their needs are and so on and so forth. And funds are always going to that so that we can give them commissary and gift baskets and stuff like that. Okay, that's all.
Farrah?
Yes, currently we're in partnerships with a staffing agency. And so here in San Antonio, we're trying to help provide our communities with jobs that pay living wages. So if you follow me at Farrell Clark on Facebook or either Reliable Revolutionaries, those jobs will constantly be posted. Most of them start at $20 an hour, although there are some that are $9 and $10 an hour, but we try to make sure we keep the community posted so that we can keep money in people's hands, especially right now in this time that we're living in. And also, just so everybody knows, we do a lot with second chance employment. So if you have a record, don't worry about that being a problem or prohibiting you. We look for that specifically to make sure those people also are being reached out to. And also, we also are back in touch. We were doing a USDA program, Farm to Table, where we were able to feed over 7,000 families this summer. And we're at the beginning of getting that started back up. So if you stay in touch with us, we'll start letting you know here pretty soon where those food distribution points will be at. And we're hoping to continue to be able to get this. It's 1,500 families that we're able to feed twice a week when it's going at full pace. So that's very important to us. If you stay active on our Facebook page, I'll make sure that I keep all those updates coming out.
Great.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, I'm a part of a group called the SNCC Legacy Project, which was formed in 2010 to help bring the lessons, the tools, the techniques, the stories, the narratives of people who were involved in the civil rights movement to new social justice organizers. We're an intergenerational organization, and we have we work primarily now, because we've learned about it, is through the internet. And we have a wonderful website called the SNCC Digital Gateway. That's SNCC Digital Gateway, that was formed in cooperation with Duke University. And in about 2 weeks, we're going to be launching our new website called the Black Power Chronicles, which tells the story about people who worked in the movement during the 60s when the Black Power era came about. It gives you a great idea about, we provide narratives, first person, no third person stories that come directly from those people who actually did the work, who did the organizing, who had the inspiration. And I think it will help people who are looking for maybe a new model, a new way to do things to check these out. So I would encourage all of you. In about a couple of weeks, we have a Facebook page, which we'll announce it on officially, and we'll be doing stuff on Instagram and Twitter. So learning all of the new platforms. So please join us. It's called the Black Power Chronicles by the SNCC Legacy Project.
And Karen,
Yes,
this is a new generation. Say what SNCC is, please.
Oh, okay. SNCC stands for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was formed in 1960 by a group of the students who were doing the sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina, and around the state and within Black colleges. So all of us, it was basically a 10-year program. It lasted from 60 to 70. It was consisting of all volunteers, all students, and we were the ones. John Lewis was one of our chairs. Stokely Carmichael was another one. So was H. Rap Brown. All of us did, and I worked full-time for SNCC starting in '66. I was a volunteer before then. So it's a model that possibly someone else may want to use. We certainly can talk about it and give you our ideas and the pros and cons of what we did. We consider nonviolence as a tactic and not as a philosophy, as Dr. King did. But that was our title, so we were stuck with it and we used it. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. And
before we
Lynn?
get off, I wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity and really just just say what an honor and a privilege it was to be here with both of you. And thank you for all the work y'all did. Like, it truly is a blessing.
Thank you for all
Let's go to Lynn, and then we'll get underway.
Well, I sort of gave my spiel about Hope and Home and what we're doing. I'm focused on the basic needs in the community where I live in Washington, D.C., keeping families fed, educated, and surviving with a roof over their head so we can get to the next place that people need to be in so that their children can be whole and not repeat the cycle of poverty.
Great. And Ray, I want to go to you next and last.
You're muted, Ray.
Just wanted to thank you, Ada and Dan, for having this conversation. I really like that it's intergenerational. Again, there's relationship between the past and the present. And when I was 20 years old, I was getting inspired by the Black Panther Party, and I was getting inspired by the American Indian movement and the Young Lords. And so I've been spending a lot of my time, growing old, telling those stories of those movements because I think it was critical for our communities to know our own history. And it's also been a joy to be able to bring new voices to that dialogue, to bring Lynn French to National Public Television, Bobby McGinnis, Hy Thurman, Chacha Jimenez, to have them, on television, telling their stories about our communities, because I think those stories can inspire us and we can learn from those tactics of the 60s. And as we move forward, as we try to combat, racism and all of this inequality in our society. So I appreciate you letting us, have this dialogue. And this is the most important thing, I think, is for us to organize amongst ourselves. How do we move forward and make this a better world?
Ray, I want to say that I was one of my other hats that I wore here was to be a film judge. And when I was looking at your film, I said, I can't believe this came out of San Antonio. Where is this film? I was just really quite happy. Thank you. It's stunning
Well,
work.
there's more out of San Antonio. There's Sabif, there's Penny, there's Farrell, there's Karen Spellman.
I
was born in San Antonio.
Ray, I want to thank you for allowing us to show this film. It needs to be something that is consistently showing in schools across the globe. And so I know it initially was on PBS and ITBS, but I don't know if does it continue on those sites so that people can continue to see it and call it out?
Originally it was only going to be on for a month, but we expanded it, and now they can screen it until July of 2021.
Oh,
and
great.
We wanted that. We were like, yes, please screen it.
Say that again. Ray, say that again. I missed you. I missed it. Say that again.
It's available for free on PBS and Independent Land streaming until July 2021.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So anyone can watch it. That's what we wanted.
So
we want people to watch it. And we know that, oftentimes people might have missed it, or they don't know about it. They may think we're talking about Jesse Jackson, you know, when we're talking about the River Coalition. So there are, you know, so we if you know people that might be interested, please share the link. We want to be people to see the film. We want people to be able to, you know, do whatever you need to do to, you know, share it with people that might be interested in hearing this story.
Great, great to know. Great to know. I want to again thank everybody for this very important conversation, very important dialogue. This is our Dream Week, SABIS 2021 Dream Week program, our first of the year. We have a number of other programs coming up. Black Love program on February 13th, partnering with the Carver the Carver Library. We have Black Rodeo film coming up on February 27th. So continue to follow us on Facebook, continue to spread the word. We have our big film festival in October. We're focusing on stars in cinema, sister stars, phenomenal Black women and films. And so we want to get that out to you. Again, I want to thank everybody in honor of Martin Luther King's holiday here in San Antonio. There's a big march that typically is live, but now it's being virtual. So tune in on the 18th, which is tomorrow, and follow the march and the festivities on Facebook. And as King said, I mean, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And being a social activist and serving being a social activist is not just marching and protesting. It's making sure that you're feeding the hunger, educating your children. I mean, be a revolutionary in those ways. And I'd like to leave you.
I just wanted to let everybody know in San Antonio, even though the Martin Luther King Council has canceled the march, we still plan on hosting a car caravan so that we're respecting COVID safety laws, but we still want to go out and honor Dr. King and the struggles that we had in this city in order to get that march put on in the first place. So I know our organization, along with several other organizations, are still going to be out on the street. We're just going to host a car caravan and try to make sure that we're practicing social distancing and, you know, all the safety, but we didn't want to just let it go away.
Excellent.
We also
Reliable Revolutionaries.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the Reliable Revolutionaries. Follow them on Facebook as well. Everyone, be safe. Continue the good work. Continue getting into good trouble. Peace and blessings to all, and you all have a good rest of your week. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.